Very good afternoon to one and all present here. We wish and hope everyone is safe, healthy, and is keeping their spirits high towards a better and healthier future. I extend a warm welcome to all the students, faculty members, and members of the management to this webinar, which shall focus on giving better vision to future entrepreneurs. Before we begin, I would like to share a famous quote by Steve Jobs, and he says, your time is limited, so don't waste it in living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown on your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. An entrepreneur should hold on to the vision of their business persistently. Having a few phrases or words that motivate you to work harder to achieve maximum growth can give business owners the support they need to thrive. We at Asian Education Group truly believe in giving maximum exposure to our students so that they thrive in every prospect of life which they pick up. With the same vision, we have amongst us a very successful entrepreneur who shall share her inspiring journey and shall talk about an entrepreneur skill set. We welcome Ms. Mansi Baranwal, founder Ignite. Ms. Mansi Baranwal is a director and resident entrepreneur based in New Delhi. She leads Ignite, a brain incubator, startup, and thriving online program which trains leaders to deliver results from transformations and change programs. Ms. Mansi previously served as a senior manager with us with the company. Her 7 years of consulting experience have yielded, in particular, a deep understanding of consumer product industry. She has advised several billion-dollar companies across India, SEA, and Africa on growth, customer experience, performance improvement, go-to-market acceleration, and marketing effectiveness. A certified executive coach, Ms. Mansi had also led multiple social sector engagements both in and outside of BAIN. She is also a co-founder of the Head Start Network Foundation, one of the India's largest grassroots level organization which supports entrepreneurship and startups. We would request Ms. Mansi to share her enriching journey with our students and motivate them and share her knowledge regarding entrepreneurial skills, which definitely are required by our students. Over to you, ma'am.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, Garima. Hi, everyone. So that was a long introduction, and thank you so much, Garima. So, I am an entrepreneur. I am an exec coach, as you heard, and I'm a management consultant. I'm also a mother. But I think the most importantly, I would say I am an optimist. And I believe that anyone can do anything, and that is something that I live by. That is something that I push others to live by, and I hope that that is, if nothing else, that's one line that I can leave you with today, to think about and to see if you can believe in it, because I certainly do. And thank you so much, Garima, for sharing that amazing quotation as well from Steve Jobs. I mean, really big name, and for all of us to aspire, and beautiful words there. Amazing. So today, I thought we could speak a little bit about entrepreneurs' skill set, what all you need to develop as a skill set to be a great entrepreneur. But before we go there, I want to understand the audience a little better, right? And for that, we do have a poll. If Himanshu, you could kindly bring up the first poll question. And the audience, if you could please answer this, it'll help me understand where you are in your in thinking about your careers and what would be most useful for me to speak about today. So you'll see a poll come up on your screens. If you can just enter your responses, and whenever we have enough responses, Himanshu, if you could kindly release the results, that'll be great. I'm just going to give you a few minutes. Do you want to release the responses, Himanshu? Amazing. Wow, this is truly an entrepreneurial group. I did not expect this. This is amazing to see. Great, great. So I see almost a 50-50 split between people who want to run their own enterprise versus take the route of being leaders in large organizations. And that is great. That is really helpful. Thank you so much for your response. Let me bring up a few slides that I thought would be useful to set the context for this. I wanted to start here, right? I wanted to start. It's funny that the first name here is Apple, starting from where we did. But I wanted to start here, and I wanted to bring to life how important entrepreneurship is in the world today. It's always been important, but I don't think we see it in the perspective as to how it's truly changing the world on an ongoing basis. This is the top 10 companies in the world, the largest 10 companies in the world by market capitalization in 2020. And as you know, most of the names here are companies that have come up in the last 10 to 20 years. And that is the power of entrepreneurship that I wanted to bring to this forum, right? There's a lot of power in large organizations, don't get me wrong. And they truly do run the economies. But increasingly we're seeing, and even in history, we see how entrepreneurs time and time again change the face of what we think about economies to be, right? And that is where I wanted to start. But given the poll question, let me actually go to the next slide as well. And this is the unique perspective, hopefully unique in some ways, that I wanted to bring to you today, which is that entrepreneurship nowadays is not restricted to those who have a tag of an entrepreneur, right? Most large organizations are undergoing change at an unprecedented rate, right? Their industries are changing. There are new startups that are disrupting their business. The regulations are changing. The consumer preferences are changing. And on average, large organizations are facing at least 3 major changes to their business every year. And that's significant, right? This number, even when I started consulting 10 years or so ago, right? Even at that time, this was probably one, right? You would face one large change and then you had to change your strategy for the year. But now organizations are changing so fast. And because of that, there's a lot of innovation happening even inside of large organizations. So most of the roles of leaders in large organizations are also becoming entrepreneur roles. And you don't just need to be in an innovation arm of a large organization to feel it. Even to succeed in a large organization, I would argue that today you need the entrepreneur's skill set. You need to be able to understand how your industry is changing. You need to be plugged in to what's happening around you. You need to have unique solutions to what's happening around you. And you need high level of ownership to execute them in the face of changing circumstances, right? So no matter which side of the poll you were, right, in the first question that I asked, I would argue that the skill set that we will discuss today is relevant to you in your career over the next 5 to 10 or even more years, right, till something dramatically different happens and the skill set changes, the required skill set changes. And so that's the preamble I want to start with. if now let's talk about what the skill set is, right? What is the skill set that is required to be successful as an entrepreneur and as a leader in a large organization? On that point, I just wanted to say that if you have any questions, there's a Q&A option here. So please feel free to type in your questions at any point in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. You don't have to wait till the end necessarily. I know this is a webinar, but I would love to make it as interactive as possible, because I'm also very intrigued to know how you think about entrepreneurship, right? How entrepreneurship is going to look like in the country over the next 10 years as you guys go into the industry and execute it. And so if you can keep posting your thoughts here, it would be good for me also to hear your point of view. Okay, sounds good. So Himanshu, if we can bring up the next poll, which starts to talk about the hard skills that an entrepreneur requires. And if you guys can let me know which of these skills you think you already possess, which of these skills you think you would like to pick up in the next 5 to 10 years. And do post comments if you think there are other skills which this list is missing, which I'm sure it's not a complete list. If you can just reply to the poll on your screen, which of these skills do you think you're already good at? I'm going to give it a few more moments. Feel free to let me know what this list is missing. What do you guys think is not here, which is very important as a hard skill. We're going to cover soft skills in a separate section after this, but as hard skills, right? As hard technical know-how, learnable skills, what else is missing from here that you think is important for an entrepreneur? Okay, 2 more seconds. Awesome. Himanshu, do you want to publish the results? Great. This is really cool. This group is very talented. Awesome. Okay, so most of you think that you already have the project management skills and the multitasking skills required for corporate careers as well as entrepreneurship going forward. That is great. And I do see that you are a little less certain about your ability to do market analysis, ability to understand latest technologies or coding, and the test and learn approach. Okay, so I'll try to over-index talking about the things that you could use to develop more as a skill set. So let me start with market analysis. As a management consultant, I feel like this has been my bread and butter in the past for a really long time. And market analysis really, it might seem like it is the skill required by some analysts, required by some researchers who can do it for certain industries and publish it, and everybody can use it. But over time, I've come to believe that the ability for anyone to be able to do market analysis is really the key to success in your career, both as an entrepreneur and in large organizations. And I'll tell you why, right? Because no matter what product or service your company is making, at the end of the day, it is not in isolation, right? So it is being made for an end customer, and it is being made inside of an environment of an industry which is changing, right? And this is a mistake that very often new joinees make in large organizations, right? It's the view becomes very myopic, because when you are junior in the organization, it's sort of understood that my role is to do what I'm told to do, or execute in my function. But what I have seen differentiates the best performers from the good performers is the ability to step outside your immediate role and see your role and your impact in the broader context of what it involves, right? Which could mean being in touch with your customers, right? What do they really want? How are their preferences changing? What do they feel about your products and services? Being in touch with the market and what are the trends, right? How is the industry changing? Are there new technologies that could help you do the same job better and faster? Are there new startups that might disrupt your business 2 years from now? Are there changes that are likely to happen in the world that will impact how you will get manpower supply or vendors, etc.? And so all of these things are happening all the time around you, and being able to plug into the market for your product or service is really an important skill, and something that you can't really outsource. You can't say that I'm going to hire an analyst and let them do it, because this is your ownership, right? This is your perception from the role that you are playing in your startup or in your big company. I can give you an example here. So as a part of, when I was a part of BAIN, I did a little bit stint, a 6-month stint at Bridgespan, which is a partner consulting firm which does social sector consulting, right? And at that time, I was working on making the child nutrition strategy for Data Trust for India, right? And that was obviously a topic which is amazing, right? So to get to work on the child nutrition strategy with such a big portfolio was really exciting. And I felt that was one project in which I went really deep. And so I went and attended conferences on child nutrition. I spoke to NGOs and scientists and corporates working in the sector. And I felt that, probably that's one time in my career that I probably came up with the best answer possible for the problem that was given to me, just because of the amount of immersion that I could do. And that would not have been possible if I would have just taken a desktop approach of sitting and seeing the data of nutrition and then crunching out a report, maybe also throwing in some quotations, right? I would not have reached the answer that I was able to when I actually went and immersed deeply in the sector, right? And in all the participants of the sector, and have a multilateral view of the problem. And since then, I've seen that, that as a pattern that works really well. Like, obviously, in both my startups, we have been doing that fairly consistently. In Ignite, literally everything we do is an experiment, right? We don't, we first of all speak to the customers before introducing anything, but even after introducing anything, we first test how the customers are reacting to it, and then only does it become a feature, right? And that's just one example, right? Everything about the product is always an experiment which exists in the context of the customer. And so market analysis, long story short, I think is a skill that is really important for everyone to have, to keep the eyes and ears open, especially given how fast industries are changing. The second thing that you guys were a little unsure about is test and learn, and that sort of connects to what I was just saying about experimentation. Again, feel free to type questions, comments, thoughts in Q&A. Would love to hear from you guys. Coming back to test and learn. So I was saying how everything in the startup is an experiment, right? And this test and learn or agile way of working is nowadays becoming almost like the holy grail of every big organization that I speak to. So we have a lot of clients now across the world, right? We serve clients in US, we serve clients in EMEA, we serve clients in China, we serve clients in South Africa. And whenever I speak to these clients, the one common way of working that is penetrating all startups, all big companies, is agile ways of working, right? And what agile essentially, I mean, this people obviously have written books on it, right? And it's a deep topic, but I think essentially for me, agile comes down to test and learn, right? And what it means is that because the world is changing really fast, you cannot be certain about what will work and what will not work, and especially if you're doing innovations, right? There's a reason most innovations fail, because it's very hard to predict what will work and not work. And so the best way to do something new or to innovate as a part of a startup, to figure out a new product, is to do it iteratively, right? And is to do it iteratively in close association with the end user who's going to use the product or the service, right? And there are various ways of how agile works, but essentially the whole thing comes down to working in quick sprints, right? So you work in quick, fast-paced experiments, and then you see the response of the experiments, and then you change your strategy just a little bit and go to the next experiment, right? And this is how all digital products nowadays are made, right? Coming to talk just about startups, this is pretty much how most digital products nowadays are made. So they start with something called a minimum viable product, or an MVP, which is version of the product which is very minimalistic. It tests the riskiest assumptions that could make the product work or not, and then incrementally you keep adding layers to it, right? You keep improving it over time as you gain confidence in your solution. And I feel like this is something that we can take away for life, right? It's not just about digital product development. It's not just about how you do innovation in large organizations. It's almost like great strategy for life, where you can just take everything as a game, right? It's a game that you have established for yourself, right? And say you are unsure about wanting to be an entrepreneur, but think it'll be cool, you can take it as a game for yourself, and you can do a minimum viable product of that, which could be something that you do even as a part while you're working in a large organization. You do something on the weekends and test it out if this is working or not, right? Or you say, okay, I'm going to give this 4 months and I'm going to try a very minimalistic version of what my idea is. And if it works out, it's great. If not, I've learned something, it's a game, and I move on. And I feel like almost as a way of life, agile is something that really works for entrepreneurship, both within large organizations and as entrepreneurs, right? And the last one was technology coding basics, right? I cannot emphasize enough how important this is becoming for every entrepreneur nowadays. It doesn't matter if you have an offline business, I don't know, making some FMCG product, right? It doesn't matter if you have an agricultural farm to store business. It doesn't matter what business you have. Having a grounding in technology, and doesn't have to be coding, right? I mean, coding would be great if you're planning to get into a digital business, but even if you're not, how can technology make your business model better is something that you just cannot afford to not know, right? And what this means is being in touch with the latest technology innovations in your industry, whichever industry you do choose to go into. It also means just keeping an eye out for generally what are the innovations happening around the world, what are the new startups coming up. There are some great newsletters that you can sign up to in order to keep up to date on this. There's just a lot, right? Nowadays, it's easy to do this. You can follow the right people on social media. You can subscribe to the right newsletters. You can there's just like so much content on every kind of topic, and that's so well structured in the world that it's easy to do that. But no matter what part of the world you're in, and no matter what you're doing, if there's one change that's pervasive, is the disruption through technology. we have a digital transformation learning program in Ignite, which we serve to large organizations around the world. Literally every company I speak to is at least undergoing or thinking of putting some digital in every or technology in every part of their business, right? That's this ubiquitous. And so I don't think we are living in a present anymore where there are technology people and people who are not into technology, because no matter what you're doing, there is some technology that could be useful for you or which could disrupt what you're doing entirely in the next 2 years. And so that is what I want to talk about. I think those were the skills that most people rated as something they want to develop. I'm happy to share examples of how this helps large organizations, if that helps. I mean, for test and learn, I can talk about Ignite, right? Essentially, everything we do at Ignite, everybody laughs at this in my team, but which is actually test and learn, right? Even honestly, even our leadership styles as a leadership team, we do as experiments, right? So we'll try something and then we'll learn from it, and then we'll do something better. It's just a continuous cycle of learning that we live in. We will make some content and then we'll iterate on it in like 10 times based on customer feedback. Our product evolves constantly. Even our sales strategy evolves constantly. Our marketing collateral iterates constantly. Literally everything in the company just iterates constantly. There's no concept of anything getting done and dusted. And that might sound exhausting, but I think that is really how everything works, right? Nothing is ever done and dusted. You can always improve on it. You can always learn from it, and I think that's really important to succeed. Okay, awesome. Should we bring up the last poll, assuming the audience is still listening, because I'm not getting any feedback? Okay, amazing. So this is the softer skills, right? So we spoke about a lot of hard skills that you need as an entrepreneur to succeed. This is the softer stuff, right? This is the things that you sort of get with practice. You don't know you have them until you face a situation in life where you need to use them. Which of these have you actually tested yourself against and you know that you will be able to use them? Garima, while this happens, could I do a quick time check? Do you want me to wrap up in 1 minute? Okay, awesome. Himanshu, do you mind publishing the results of the poll? Great. Awesome. So you guys have amazing communication skills. I'm really happy to hear that. At least when I did my undergrad and my postgrad, this was not common among students at all. So I'm really glad that that's something that has changed, and people already are walking out of schools with this skill set. So that's amazing. Let's look at the skill set that you think you don't possess or haven't tested yourself against as yet. Getting things done from nothing, hustle. Okay. High bar on quality. Got that. And then resilience. Okay. Sounds good. But do you guys agree that this is the skill set that makes an entrepreneur successful? Is there something missing from the list? Would love to hear that. Assuming that there's nothing missing from the list, let's talk about hustle, high bar on quality, and resilience, discipline, taking away from this poll. Okay. Awesome. So I think getting things done. I don't know why you have rated it so low. I feel like this is the one skill set that most Indians possess. Right? You might not have tested this out in the work context, but I always feel that as a society, we are really good at hustling, jugaad, right? And I have seen that time and time again. It's if we put our mind to anything, we know how to hustle for it. The current situation notwithstanding, outside of these rooms, and I think getting things done from nothing or hustle really comes down to how badly you want it, um, and also how creatively can you think. But this is a skill set that's almost non-negotiable, right? For any leadership position ever, because in early years of your career, it's possible that you'll have somebody tell you what you need to do, and there'll be set parameters of success or not in that endeavor. But very soon you'll realize that most leaders have to get things done from nothing, right? There's no playbook to how it needs to be done. There are new projects and new innovations, and every time it is you creating something from nothing, and the feeling of being able to do that is great, right? Especially as an entrepreneur, when you create a product and you see actual people using it and loving it and asking for it, that feeling is amazing. And it's not just about a product, right? It could be um, creating anything from nothing, right? Like I might have a son who's 3.5 years old. Even when I see him create like paintings, right? Creating something from nothing, the joy of having created something in the world. Once you get that joy, it's very hard to go to anything else, right? And so I think this essentially, as I said, it comes down to two things. One is just how badly you want it done, and second is how creatively can you think about doing it, and it's something worth practicing. One example that comes here to mind is when I was working as a management consultant in Bain. There was this one time when I was shipped off to Africa for a consumer product company, and we had to do market research. And I was fairly early. It was very early in my career then, and I did not know much about. I had never been to Africa, obviously, but I also did not have experience enough to go in an entirely new country by myself and do market research. But I mean, given the opportunity, I jumped on it because it just seemed like such a cool thing to do. And I went and I was there in the country for like a week by myself, and I was doing market research, speaking to people I never met before. I had one person from the client organization accompany me to make sure that I meet the right people. But I think it was one of the most amazing experiences I've had, because it was just such a beautiful way to understand the business and actually get it done. I mean, if I had not taken the call to actually jump on that plane and go to Africa to do the market research, and I would have just asked the African arm to send me some data and crunch numbers, it would just not be the same, right? I would not have come up with the solutions I needed to come up with. And I think it's just that drive to get things done, and how creatively can you do it, right? And so, for example, um, in this context, I don't know how many of you actually have done sales with it, but when you do sales with it, it's basically like a show that's been put on for you, right? Because everything, you're only taken to the best stores, you're only shown the good stuff that is all orchestrated. And so the hustle there, it was to actually change the routes in the last minute, right? But which I did, or just walk up to stores near where I was living and do the visits outside of the context of the sales visit. And so how can I figured out like creative ways to take the same information in a better way. But that's a really small example, which I was trying to elucidate how it is at the end of the day all about how you can creatively think about new ways of doing the same thing, and how determined you are to get it done, which I honestly believe you guys have rated it low, but all of you already do in so many aspects of your life, and it's just about bringing that to the work. Resilience obviously is something that Dharma also pointed out initially. It sounds like a word, but when you actually face it, it's really hard, especially as an entrepreneur. There'll be times when you will have 20 reasons to quit and 2 to continue going, and those times will happen every few months. And it's just your mind starts to play tricks on you, because if things are not working out, you don't know why it's not working out. Is it me? Is it the company? Is it the product? Is it my sales strategy? Is it my pricing? Right? There's just so many variables in the equation. And to say no, okay, I'm going to fix every variable. I'm going to look at every variable one by one and actually fix it. And I'm going to face this head on every few months. Is just it's a skill to develop, which is really useful for life. And again, I think most of you actually have this skill. You might not be using it in your work situation, but all of us are resilient, right? I'm sure, one area in your life where you have shown resilience. It could be studies, it could be family, it could be coming from a different part of the country to here, right? And to do this education. It could be something. I'm sure that at some point in your life you have shown grit and resilience, and it's just about bringing that to your work now and caring enough to do that. I think we're out of time, if I'm not wrong, Garima, and so I'm going to stop here. I also had a few more topics of conversation, but those can wait. I would love to hear if you have any questions.
Sure. So can we start with the Q&A right now?
Yes, please.
Great. Well, there was one comment here, since you had invited some questions online. So one student has sent us that strong analytical skills are probably missing in the soft skills section.
Absolutely, yes. I would put it more probably in the hard skill section, but absolutely agree. Strong analytical skills certainly required. I think strong analytical skills are basically about pattern recognition, right? Can you look at large amounts of data quickly and see the patterns? Can you look at large amount of information and draw the patterns that other people might have missed, or even if they haven't missed, can you see them for yourself? And I think it comes with practice, right? It comes with practice. Can you pick up a new topic and within 2-3 days be able to start seeing the patterns and understanding that industry, understanding that topic, understanding that data set, no matter what it is? Pattern recognition is a very important entrepreneurial skill set.
True. So the first question that has come up is, as a startup, what would be the first thing we should do for the marketing and advertising? Is it blogs, podcast, video series, or something else?
It really depends on your startup, right? When you're thinking of sales and marketing, think about audience first, right? Like which is the audience that who's the end user of your product, right? And there'll be other entities outside of the end users as well. So there'll be people who will use your product. There might be people who will recommend your product. So for example, it could be the retailer, right? There could be people who will I don't know, be influencers for what product gets used. And so there'll be an entire ecosystem around the product or the service that your company is building. And the right channel for sales and marketing is the channel that these people are using, right? It's as simple as that. And what is going to get their attention in the highest ROI manner, highest return on your investment, that is the right channel.
How can we get our customers talking about our business?
I think, so there's two parts to it, right? There's customers who are using your product and there's customers who are not using your product. Customers who are using your product, the most short way of getting them to talk about your business is to make a great product, right? That actually leaves them delighted, not just satisfied. right? And so that is one. But then also that's just not enough, right? People are not sitting out there and they don't have all the time in the world to go and talk about great
Right.
products that they're using. And so you need to give them avenues to easily do that, right? Can you give them a share link, which is easy, which is just one click for them? If they like your product, do they have easy share link within the product to talk about it in social media, let's say, right? Or do they have discount coupons that they can share with their friends? So I think it's a combination of those two things, right? Having a great product in the first place that they want to recommend you and talk about you, but then also making it super simple for them to do that in minimum time possible is important.
Well, I think that has got something to do with easing out the user experience, how smooth that entire journey can be.
For
Great.
sure. Yes.
The next question is, in the world of big data and artificial intelligence, how do you see analytical skills requirement for entrepreneurs? Any suggestions for specific skill sets? Though we have discussed quite a few of them, but with regard to big data and artificial intelligence, what would be your comment on that?
So I think actually even now very few systems in the world actually use real artificial intelligence, right? So I think it's a highly misused term. And I don't think everybody needs to be a data scientist or a data engineer in the world today. Having said that, those are important skills, right? So when you look at data and analytics, it's almost like a stack, right? Data is a stack. So there is people who are doing the infrastructure of it, how it will be stored, how it will be saved, how it will be secured. And then there's people who are doing the analytics of it, as you said, right? They call data scientists or data analysts, right? And specific skills for data scientists and data analysis and analysis would be modeling for sure. Cleaning, right? Cleaning data is a skill. I think it's a underrated skill, but how do you get data in a usable format quickly is an important skill. How do you draw patterns, and I think analytics nowadays is also, besides the old skills of Excel and Tableau and Alteryx and all of that, it is increasingly becoming about your comfort with using the right analytics tools, right? How comfortable are you with data visualization tools like Tableau? How comfortable are you with tools that can help you create data flows like Alteryx? So I think data analytics has become an industry in itself, and there's almost like sub roles within data analytics now that you could choose to go after. But at a very basic level, it is that skill of basic mathematics, right? At the end of the day, and being able to use that to draw patterns.
Great. Design thinking is an important and integral part of critical thinking. What other aspects of critical thinking would you suggest for entrepreneurs?
Design thinking, yes, for sure. I think there needs to be an ability to step back from time to time and be critical about your own past decision and about what you are doing right now, right? And I think that, can you in your critical thinking be critical about yourself is very important skill set for an entrepreneur, right? How comfortable are you saying that I was wrong? And you will be, right? You will be wrong every day, pretty much, in some senses, right? You'll change it, you'll change your strategy, you'll pivot it in strong and in small and big ways, and not treating that as being wrong, yeah, but a continuous learning cycle, the test and learn that I spoke about. I think that is the most important thing. So how critical can you be of yourself when you think critically is the important thing.
Great, great. So, what's the biggest mistake which an entrepreneur could make while identifying the target market or customers for them?
That's a great question. I think there are many mistakes, right? I think first of all, like, your target market needs to be big enough, right? Just because you feel that your product will be useful for somebody that you know, doesn't mean that it will be a successful product, because it also needs to scale. So that's one, right? um, and for that you need to be able to clearly segment your target populations and understand who are the exact segments that your product is useful for, and then be able to narrow that down through interviews, through data, through surveys, right? What we call as user research. So you need to have the ability to do the user research. A lot of times it might not be super formal in the beginning, right? You might start with an informal research, speaking to people, but even with the informal research, can you very early on think about what are the segments, what is their approximate size in the world, are they able to pay for my product, right? What is their paying capacity? And if they don't have the paying capacity, then the decision maker is someone else, right? Can that person pay for my product? And what is the competition set, right? Like how many people am I competing with when I serve this target audience? And so going from total addressable market to actual market that you are likely to get, that kind of, even if you do it in a very back of the envelope manner, making sure that your market size is right is important. And related to that is also obviously the fact that is your product really required? So when you're doing your research, not just asking questions which have an answer of yes, this is great and I need it, but asking questions that have the potential to really upend your idea, right? To say that whatever you've been thinking about is wrong. Ask those questions. Don't forget to ask those questions, right? The contrarian questions are very important to make sure that you're on the right path.
Great lesson here. So we see nowadays that a lot of graduates or college dropouts are getting into entrepreneurship and they're going forward with entrepreneurial ventures. For them, financial skills become a challenge or a challenging task. Your specific suggestion to those who do not come from a financial background would be?
So you don't have to be from a finance background to understand finance basics, right? Finance basics, you can do a lot of courses actually online nowadays to understand finance basics. Essentially, you need to understand the basic equations of what is gross profit, right? What is net profit? What is EBITDA, right? As long as you understand basic, what is balance sheet, what is P&L, what is working capital, right? As long as you understand these basic things of being able to keep the finances of your company in your mind, I think you're good. I mean, you don't need to be a financial wizard to become an entrepreneur, but you will face working capital issues, right? I can tell you on day one, unless you have like a bottomless pit and you're funded by some really big pockets, you are going to have working capital issues. And so having a good financial backing and making sure that you have a system early on to have all the invoices go in, etc. I think because in the initial days you're so focused on the product, etc. This is something that people tend to forget, and it's really important to save the invoices, to have an invoice tracking system. It doesn't have to be digitalized initially, but at least having a folder where you plonking them in and you're having a rough idea of what you're spending against the budget, of where your working capital is stuck. Should you list your product on this website, which is only going to send you money every 3 months? Is that going to lock in your working capital? Just at that level, you need to obviously know it. And I think that comes intuitively to a lot of us, right? We might not call it as working capital, but how much money we have and where it's going is very intuitive. It's just about giving a name to it and keeping track of it, if in nothing else than a simple Excel, right?
Great. We have an interesting question now. What difference do you see in the teamwork and leadership skills of any established enterprise and a startup or a new venture?
So I think teamwork and leadership are two entirely different things, right? So let me talk about them in differently. I think leadership, one probably I can speak to more. I think when you're part of a large organization, sure, you are on point for delivering results, right, and managing a team and coming up with solutions, and so you sort of, the buck is stopping on you. But uh, but you are not the source of comfort for your team, right? Like, they are a part of a big brand, right? And there's certain job security, there's certain comfort that comes from being a part of that big brand, right? And so they don't go and say that they work for their boss, right? They go and say they work for their company, right? And you're not responsible for being the reputation of that company, right? And as an entrepreneur, you are the company. I mean, you're not the company, but you're upholding the reputation of the company, at least in the initial days when the team is small, right? And so it's a little more complicated in that sense, because say you are having funding issues, but there's still, you know, a level of confidence that you have to project, right, in order to give people comfort. And you have to, and there's a culture of the organization that you are responsible for upholding, and you have to make sure that happens no matter how busy you are. You know, those team events have to happen, and you have a consistent culture in the organization. So I feel like there's a lot of those additional responsibilities that come on you as an entrepreneur that probably happen automatically in a large organization. Like, I mean, there's a culture, established culture in a large organization, there's established processes, there's an established brand name, and that becomes a little more complicated.
Great. So what are the key factors you consider for being successful in your own journey? Factors which actually led to success.
I feel like I always do what I want to do, right? I've always done that. And so I don't know if I could, for a really long time, I've done it for short bursts of time, but I don't know if for a long period of time I could just do something for the sake of it. Right. And I only do things that I really am passionate about or like doing. And so I think that is important, at least for me, right? It's different for different people. Different people derive meaning from different things. And I think this is the thing that's most important for me.
Great. So, Ms. Mansi, do we have more for our students? You said there are a few topics that you would like to share.
I think I've been talking a lot. I don't want to bug them too much. I mean, feel free to ping me offline on LinkedIn if you have specific questions. I'm happy to answer them. Just mention that you're from AEG, so have the reference of where the messages are coming from in the subject. I'm happy to answer if you have any other questions. And yeah, this has been great. Some great questions there. Thank you so much for having me, and all the
Great.
best.
We
Yeah.
wrap up, we would like to have one message for our students, because as we had discussed, we have a lot of students here who want to or who are aspiring to be an entrepreneur in future. So one brief message for all of them, so they have learned a lot from you. It will be nice for them to be motivated.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that don't don't take life too seriously, right? There's a lot of things that you can explore and learn from at all points of time, and just try things for the sake of trying. At least that's what I feel like 20s and 30s should be about, right? And I feel like the patterns in life emerge over time by themselves, right? So don't try to over engineer things, don't try to overthink things. You know, in the initial days of your career, don't spend your weekends sleeping. Like, try things, learn from things. When you've seen enough different kind of things, you will know exactly what you want to do, at least at that moment of time, right? And it might change next month, and that doesn't matter. But as long as you are doing things that are giving you joy, I think that's great, right? And if that means that you want to be an entrepreneur on your weekends, that's great. If that means that you want to take a break for a few months and try entrepreneurship, that's great. If you think that you can never ever work again for anyone else, and you have to be the master of your fate, jump right into it, right? I just don't take life too seriously. Things to um, figure themselves out, and I mean, every decision is temporary, pretty much. Every decision has a back door.
True. Well, great. That was a great lesson that we actually learned from our experiences, and indeed, this session was a great learning experience for all our students. Thank you so much for talking about the most relevant skills which are required today, and for sure they'll be required in the coming times as well. And I thank you on behalf of the management of Asian Education Group, all the faculty members and students, to spend your time with us, your valuable time with us. And we would like to acknowledge your presence by presenting a memento. Can we please have the memento? That's for you, Miss Mansi.
Thank you so much, Garima, and thank you, students and faculty, for having me. And as I said, this was a little bit of a monologue, and so if you do want to catch up and have a conversation, have a two-way conversation, do write to me. And I always love hearing how students are thinking about entrepreneurship, and it's a very passion filled fun experience, right? Even just thinking about it, even being a part of the community. And so yeah, would love to hear from you.
Great. Thank you. We look forward to a continued association with you, Miss Mansi. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks, Sarima.